Gonna replace these pads. These are Wagner Thermal Quiet original equipment. See, if you look at the pads here, if you look right in here, you'll see the pads are kind of worn down. Remove these bolts to get to the pads. Okay, that's a 13 millimeter. And remove this one. Turn down below here. Right here. So remove this one as well. Come out of there. Make sure you have something like a coat hanger, and do not let the caliper hang by itself. That's bad for the line and a whole host of other problems. So I'm going to put it through here and pull the caliper out. You see right here, it's hanging by this. I'm going to hang it somewhere. A metal bracket up here I can hang that into. So you see it's hanging by a hanger. Let me just go ahead and show that. This was the inner pad that fell out, so this normally goes here. Here's one. Here's the second one. Also pretty worn. You can see it wore down to here. So I'm going to replace these. Now normally I'm just going to replace the pads and put those inside here. I'm going to move this up a little bit. So this is the parking brake. Now, on the Ford Mustang, in the old days, you would just simply push this piston back. But on this one, you have to rotate it. I don't know if it's clockwise, counterclockwise, I'll find out soon enough. You have to rotate this in order to push it back. So, meanwhile, while I have this hanging here, we're going to go ahead and push that back. Another thing we're going to do is here is I'm going to remove this bracket. And the reason for that is you normally don't need to, but I'm replacing this with a machined rotor. So normally if you're just doing pads, you do not need to do this step. But for what I'm doing, I'm going to remove it. But for now, let's just go ahead and rotate the piston back. Okay, I showed you earlier there's this piston that has to be rotated. You see the notches here in the center of the screen. And the tool that I had earlier does not fit. So what I did is Kragen/O'Reilly has this kit that you can rent. Rent being you give your credit card and you can get all these tools that allow you to take that piston and rotate it. So we're going to go ahead and use this, and if you return it within 48 hours, they said they don't charge you a dime. So just bring it back with all the parts and we'll see how it works. So this plate has two pins that match the notches here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in here like that. Okay? And then I'm going to use this tool, which has the matching pins, to use this to rotate the piston. What you see is there's this tool that matches in here. So if you have to install this plate, which is not obvious, but you have to put it in like this. Okay? And this plate fits like that. The pin's there, and then I'm going to back this out like that. So you see that? So now I have the pins lined up, have the backing plate here. Okay. So, according to the instructions, I hold. Let me go get a wrench. So what I'm doing is I'm going to put a wrench here to keep this from turning. Span back just a little bit, and I'm going to rotate this that screws the piston back into the caliper. So I'm just going to hold that, and remember to suspend your caliper at the top. So I have this backed out. I'm going to hold this now, and it says to turn the caliper clockwise. Clearly, this is a lot harder than it looks. It says to rotate the body. Okay, for whatever reason, I cannot seem to rotate this body. So I'm going to try it again. Okay, there's that. Okay, clearly I'm not doing something right. I'm not quite sure why it's not rotating. It says here, insert the tool in the caliper, align the plate with slots, turn the T-handle clockwise while holding the main body with a wrench. Fortunately, nothing is turning here. I'm not quite sure why. I'll shut this off until I figure it out. Okay. There's a bolt here and a bolt up here to remove. So I'll undo these. Okay, these are the bolts here. There's one here and there's one down here that allow me to remove this from the caliper. And so we're going to bring this back. So this is a caliper bracket. We'll pull that out. And this allows us to remove the disc. So what I'm going to do is replace my disc, the newer one, and we'll put all of this back on. This is brake cleaner that I got from Kragen/O'Reilly's. I don't like putting it on rubber because it's not good for it, so I'm going to put it on this rag and just clean off parts of the caliper. It's mainly cosmetic, but it doesn't hurt to have clean parts on your car. I'm just going to go ahead and here's this caliper bracket, all nice and shiny. This is just really made cosmetic because this will be the part that's visible on the wheel. So I'm going to go ahead and close that, and put on my new disc brake. Okay, this is actually the original rotor. And what happened was I actually bought another one. These are used, but somebody had upgraded them by painting them black, having a machine flat, and he ended up going with slotted rotor. So this is actually a used rotor, but for $12.50 for each one, $50 for the set, I'm going to go ahead and put this on. Won't even have to touch that one, although that is a good rotor. So I put this here, and this would be true if you're going to put on any kind of slotted rotor or aftermarket. Put this on there, and we're done. From here, I just go ahead and bolt on the rest of the equipment. Put the bracket back on. I have the bolts. We'll go through. Let's screw into it. I'll bring it in really close so you can see exactly what we're talking about here. Hopefully it's not too dark. You see this is going through on this part and screws into the bracket. So we just put that in there. We do that likewise for the bottom. Same thing here. This will make it a little more obvious. We just line it up there and it goes through. Okay, so that's those two bolts that comprise what holds this. So we'll bolt that. We'll bolt this in place and put the caliper back on. Okay, so I have the bolts. These are called the caliper anchor bolts. And this one here, I couldn't find it in the book, but the front ones are 85 foot-pounds. And this is a 15 millimeter socket. So that's for these, so I'll go ahead and tighten those up. You hear that? That's the click. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put these pads in place. And if you'll notice, I changed my gloves. Whenever you're working with new components, you really want to have clean gloves. These are Wagner. These are OEM quality ceramic brakes. These are the pads. So these are going to be going in here. And we'll see how they fit. Now note, earlier, there are these little metal plates that go here at the bottom of the calipers. And they just snap in place. So you keep them there. So I'm going to be having these in here like this for each one. And what I haven't figured out exactly is how they fit in here relative to the caliper. So we'll see what that looks like. Okay, so see this here at the corner. This comes down and fits here. Likewise down here. The same thing. These kind of fit up here. So now that these pads are in place, that's why you want to make sure the piston is retracted. Let's go a little closer and look. So you see this again, these are all placed in. So I'm going to assume I remove the caliper here from its hanging thing, and I'm going to put this on top. These springs are going to push up against the caliper body, and I just slide this on top. So these are the forcing arms that go on the pads, and that piston back there goes there. And that pretty much looks like that's it. So at the top I have the two bolts. One goes up here, goes right there, and there's one here at the bottom as well. You can just see that at the bottom of the screen. This is a 13 millimeter socket, and it's 24 foot-pounds according to the back for a 2006 Mustang. Okay, well that's it. I'm gonna not show this being tightened up, but this is a replacement of that. And from back here, we're done. All I have to do is put the wheel back on, that's the rear. You'll have to obviously do the other side. In the next one we'll show the front being done. The front will be simpler because you do not have to rotate the piston. Same concepts. Caliper bolts here, caliper anchors to replace the disc, and you're all done. Okay, that's it. Thanks.